The loudest heartbreak is the one nobody hears, the one that hits only when the room goes quiet. My friends, let me tell you something that might sting a little, but it will free you once you hear it. There is always a moment, a very specific moment, when they finally regret losing a stoic man. It doesn't happen when you walk away. It doesn't happen when they block you, replace you, or pretend they don't care. No, that's all just noise. The real regret shows up later, when the world around them stops spinning long enough for the truth to hit them straight in the ego. Before we go deep, press the like button and subscribe so you don't miss anything we're about to uncover together. Stay with me, because this might just change how you see everything. Hey folks, imagine this. You're standing in a quiet room. No music, no arguments, no explanations, just silence. And suddenly, you hear every small sound you ignored before. The hum of the refrigerator, the clock ticking, your own breathing. That's exactly what happens to someone who loses a stoic man. At first, the silence feels peaceful. They think they're in control. They think they've won. But give it a little time, and that silence becomes loud enough to expose every lie they told themselves. It's like this old saying, still water runs deep. On the surface, it looks calm, but underneath, there's a whole world moving, shifting, transforming. Stoic men are like that water. You're calm, you're composed, you're not making noise, but you're deep enough to be unforgettable. And that depth. Folks, that's what they don't realize they lost until it's too late. You see, we live in a world where many people think the loudest person wins. They think being dramatic means being strong. They believe pulling away gives them the power. But let me break a lie here. Silence doesn't mean surrender. It means wisdom. When a stoic man goes silent, it's not because he's weak. It's because he finally understands that a calm mind is more powerful than a chaotic heart. Let me give you another picture. Ever seen someone let go of a balloon? At first, they laugh as it floats away. They feel free, relieved. But a few seconds later, when the balloon becomes a tiny dot in the sky, suddenly they realize, I can't get it back. That, my friends, is the exact moment regret hits them. Not when they let you go, but when they understand you're not returning. And trust me, regret always comes. Because stoic men don't beg. They don't chase. They don't compete for attention like they're in some emotional Olympics. A stoic man simply steps back and lets reality do the teaching. And reality teaches hard. You were the calm in their storm. You were the structure in their chaos. You were the peace their soul borrowed without appreciating it. But when you leave, suddenly everything feels unbalanced. The people they replaced you with don't feel the same. The conversations don't land the same. The peace you brought is missing, and their ego starts whispering lies they can't even believe anymore. They start thinking, why am I thinking about them? Why do I miss someone who wasn't loud, wasn't dramatic, wasn't chasing me? And the truth is simple, because your silence is honest, and honesty hits deeper than noise ever will. And here's the fun part. Sometimes they'll try to convince themselves they're perfectly fine. They'll act like they're thriving. They might even post pictures pretending life is a carnival. But deep down, they're replaying what you said, how you moved, how you stayed calm when everyone else came with storms. My friends, silence makes a stoic man unforgettable. Stillness makes you powerful. And your emotional control? That's the part they'll regret losing forever. So stay with me, because what you're about to discover next will show you exactly when regret strikes, why it strikes, and why the stoic man always rises stronger. Write this in the comments right now. I choose calm. And don't forget to like and subscribe. This journey is just getting started. Number 1. When silence stops feeling like power. The ego always thinks silence is control until the quiet starts talking back. My friends, there comes a moment when the game flips. At first they think pulling away from you, ignoring you, going quiet on you is power. They think silence makes them untouchable. They think, if I don't call, if I don't text, if I act unbothered, I'm winning. That's the story their ego tells them. But there's another story running underneath, and that one always wins in the end. Imagine this for a second. Picture them standing on top of a tall hill, shouting, "I don't care, I'm fine," into the wind. At the top, they feel strong. But on the walk back down, when the noise fades and there's no one around to clap, the echo of their own voice comes back to them. I don't care. I don't care. Until finally, they hear what they're actually saying. I'm trying really hard to prove something, even to myself. That's what happens when silence stops feeling like power and starts feeling like a mirror. At first, they treat losing you like a joke, a story they can twist for laughs. It is what it is. They'll be fine. I'll be fine. I had to do it. They repeat these lines like a script. They roll their eyes if your name comes up. They pretend you were just another chapter, another option, another "it didn't work out." But deep down, questions start creeping in at the edges of their mind when they're alone. Why am I still thinking about them? Why does their name still sting a little? If I was so sure, why do I feel this weird emptiness now? They won't say it out loud, but the quiet starts to feel heavy. Let's be real here, folks. Many people were never taught how to feel honestly. They were taught how to perform, to look strong, not be strong, to look in control, even when they're falling apart inside. That's why they use silence as a weapon at first. It's not wisdom. It's fear wearing a mask. They think, if I don't reach out, I'm not weak. If I don't show I miss them, I'm still in control. But control built on pretending is never real control. It's like painting over cracks in a wall and calling it solid. The house still knows it's broken. There's a reason this first crack is so important. This is the moment where their silence, which once felt like a shield, starts to feel like a prison. The same distance they thought would keep them safe starts to trap them with their own thoughts. They ask themselves, what if they don't come back this time? What if I'm not the one in control? What if they finally saw their worth without me? Fear slips in quietly, and that's when regret starts writing its first line. Let me give you another example. Think of a stage performance. Bright lights, loud music, actors giving everything. When the show ends, the crowd leaves, the lights go out. What's left? Just one person standing in an empty theater, listening to their own footsteps. That's them after they lose a stoic man. The show was all the drama, all the ego, all the noise. But when it's over, they're left alone with the consequences. You were the calm center of all that noise. You didn't need to be loud. You didn't need to beg. You didn't need to chase. Your presence was your power. Your steadiness was your value. They didn't see it at first because the world told them a lie. The one who cares less wins. The one who pulls away first has the power. Let's break that lie right now. The one who cares less is not powerful. The one who feels nothing is not stronger. The one who runs from their feelings is not in control. Real power is this: feeling everything, but choosing your response. That is what a stoic man does. You didn't go silent to play a game. You went silent because you were done begging your soul to live in a place where it couldn't breathe. You didn't stop reaching out to punish them. You stopped because you finally realized you deserve peace more than you deserve maybe someday. But understand this, my friends. That's exactly what makes it so hard for them later. Because when they compare the energy they get from others with the energy they had with you, it doesn't line up. Others might bring excitement, attention, drama, but they don't bring depth. They don't bring that steady, grounded, I'm here kind of calm you carried without even trying. And that's when the questions in their mind turn into fear. What if no one else feels like that again? What if I misjudged them? What if I pushed away the one person who was truly solid? This part is difficult for them because it demands honesty, and honesty is terrifying for an ego that built itself on performance. They're forced to look at the truth. Maybe you weren't the weak one. Maybe you were the strong one all along. Maybe silence never belonged to them. It belonged to you. They think this way because the world programmed them to see softness as weakness and detachment as not caring. But Stoic detachment isn't, I don't care. It's, I care enough about myself not to go where my peace keeps dying. They don't understand that at first. All they see is you not chasing, you not reacting, you not breaking. And that's what shakes them, because if you're not crushed without them, if you're not falling apart, if you're not sending those late-night I miss you messages, then what does that say about the story their ego was telling? The story said, they need me more than I need them. I can come back whenever I want. They'll always be there. That illusion starts to crumble the first time they feel a real raw thought like, what if I was the one who needed them more? That's the crack. It's small, almost invisible from the outside. No one sees it on their face, but it's there in the way their chest tightens when your name comes up. It's there in the way they check your profile, then pretend they didn't. It's there in the way they stare at old conversations and lock their phone like they just touched fire. My friends, this is where your silence starts to work. Not as a weapon, but as a teacher. Not as revenge, but as a mirror. You didn't have to say a single word. Life spoke for you. And now, as they sit with the silence they created, they're learning the lesson they never expected. Losing a Stoic man isn't like losing anyone else, because you won't come back just because they feel like playing nice again. You don't move on command, you move with intention. So as this first crack appears in their ego, remember this, you are not losing. You're watching truth do what truth always does. It rises, even through the quiet. We're just getting started, folks. What comes next hits even deeper, when your absence stops being an idea and becomes a reality they can't escape. Write this in the comments right now. My silence has power. Show them. Show yourself. Show the world around you that you're not afraid of the quiet. You're using it to rise. Number 2, when your absence hits harder than your presence ever did. Sometimes the loudest presence is the one that isn't there anymore. My friends, this is where the real shift begins. This is the exact moment when your absence stops being something they can casually overlook and becomes something they can't escape. In the beginning, they tell themselves the usual story. I'm fine, I'm moving on, I don't need them. Their friends believe it, their social media reflects it, and for a while, even they manage to believe it. But life has a quiet, ruthless way of exposing what's real, and it never does it in the middle of the party. It does it when the noise fades, and they're finally alone with their thoughts. Imagine them going through their normal day, same routes, same faces, same routines. On the surface, everything looks unchanged, but something feels off. There is a strange emptiness in the middle of very familiar surroundings, a small but stubborn sense that something that used to hold everything together is now missing. That something is you. Your presence wasn't loud, but it was steady. You were the calm gravity keeping things from spinning all the way out of control, and they only start to feel that once you're no longer there to quietly carry the emotional weight. People think they'll miss the obvious things first, the jokes, the late-night calls, the long conversations. But what actually hits them hardest isn't any single moment. It's your energy. It's the peace you brought into the room without announcing it. It's the way their nervous system rests around you without them realizing why. When you walk away, they expect to miss the highlights. But what actually haunts them is the loss of balance. It's like pulling one leg off a table. The table doesn't collapse right away, but it starts to wobble, and the more weight life puts on it, the more unstable everything feels. That's when the truth begins to sneak in. Your presence wasn't just comforting, it was holding things up in ways they never acknowledged. Their mind starts to ask questions their ego doesn't want to hear. Why does the day feel heavier now? Why do they keep reaching for their phone without thinking? Why does that random quiet moment suddenly feel so uncomfortable? On the outside, they're still posting, laughing, and staying busy. On the inside, something is shifting. Once someone has experienced real emotional stability, the usual chaos doesn't hit the same way anymore. The party isn't as fun, the attention doesn't feel as satisfying, and the distractions don't scratch the itch. Deep down, they're feeling the contrast between what they had with you and what they get from everyone else. Think of a small candle burning in a corner of a room. It doesn't draw that much attention while it's lit. People might barely look at it. But the second that flame goes out, the room changes. The darkness is suddenly obvious, and everyone realizes just how much light that small flame was giving. That's you. That's your role in their life. Your calm, your consistency, your grounded presence was the light they never really measured until it went out. Before, they told themselves you were too calm, too serious, or too stoic. Now, every connection that lacks that depth feels thin and temporary, and that's where the first real sting of regret starts to show up. But accepting that truth is not easy for them. Their ego hates the idea that they misjudged you. It hates the idea that they lost something irreplaceable because they were busy chasing something loud and shallow. So instead of admitting, "I miss the way they made me feel safe," they tell themselves, "I'm just having a rough day," or "I just need more fun, more people, more distraction." They work harder, stay out longer, scroll further. Anything to avoid saying, "I pushed away the one person who gave me peace." The lie they were taught is still running in the background. If you care less, you're stronger. If you can walk away first, you're in control. If you can stay silent, you win the game. But there comes a moment where that silence doesn't feel like winning anymore. It feels like punishment they accidentally gave themselves. This is the part that really starts to hurt them. Your absence doesn't just feel like someone is gone, it feels like a standard is gone. You set the bar for what emotional safety feels like, and now everything below it tastes cheap. They might talk to new people, enjoy the attention, smile for the pictures, but nothing sits as deeply as the peace they once felt around you. And that realization doesn't announce itself with a big dramatic breakdown. It creeps in quietly. It arrives when they hear a song that reminds them of you. It shows up when something good happens and they instinctively wish they could tell you. It hits them when they realize no one else truly understands the way you did. They didn't expect your absence to be this strong because they never saw you as the dramatic one. They might have mistaken your composure for emotional weakness, your calm for lack of passion, your silence for not caring. Now they're faced with a version of you who is truly gone and truly at peace, and that is one of the most unsettling things a fragile ego can face. A stoic man who has detached doesn't come back just because they feel like revisiting the past. You don't answer every hook. You don't respond to every test. You don't break your own peace to make them comfortable again, and that's when the regret moves from a whisper to a weight. My friends, your absence is not emptiness. It is a lesson. It is proof that your value was never in how loud you could be or how desperately you could cling. Your value was in the calm you carried, the steadiness you offered, the way you could be fully present without losing yourself. When you walk away from someone who didn't honor that, you don't disappear. You become the comparison point their future will be measured against. That's why your absence hits harder than your presence ever did, because now they finally see what you truly were. Write this in the comments right now. My presence is priceless. Show them, show yourself, and show the world around you that when you leave, it's not a void. It's a reminder of the peace you once brought and the peace you're now keeping for yourself. Stay with me, because the next part goes even deeper into the moment where their pride finally collides with the truth they can't run from anymore. Number 3, when their pride collides with reality. Pride always feels like armor, right up until life proves it was just thin glass. My friends, this is the stage they never see coming. At first, their pride is driving the car. They're telling themselves they did the right thing, that walking away or treating you like you were optional was somehow smart, somehow strong. They stand on that hill of ego and shout, "I'm good, I don't need them, I made the right choice." And for a while, that story holds, until reality quietly walks in and starts asking better questions than their pride can answer. Picture this. Imagine someone walking around with sunglasses on at night. They're convinced the glasses make them look cool, confident, above it all. But in reality, they're bumping into things, missing details, not seeing clearly. That's their pride. It made them feel powerful for a little while, but it never helped them see the truth. And eventually, life reaches over, takes those glasses off, and says, "Now look again." That moment, that sting of clarity, is when the real regret starts to form. In the beginning, they tell themselves all the usual lines. "It was for the best." "We didn't fit." "I can do better." They repeat these phrases to friends, to themselves, to the mirror. But then something happens that pride can't block. Maybe they see you handling your life with calm. Maybe they hear your name and feel that small sting in their chest. Maybe they catch themselves missing the way you grounded them. And suddenly the confidence they wore like a costume starts to feel a little cheap. This is where the emotional whiplash hits. One part of them is still trying to act unbothered, but another part is starting to wake up and whisper, "What if I was wrong about them?" That inner conflict is exhausting. On one side, ego, still trying to keep the crown. On the other side, reality, quietly laying out the facts. You were steady, you were loyal, you were patient, you brought peace instead of chaos. And they threw that away because they thought they'd never run out of chances with you. That's not power, that's arrogance dressed as confidence. Let's break one of the biggest lies they were living in, the lie that says, if they care more, I win. If I show less emotion, I have the upper hand. If I can move on faster, I'm stronger. Folks, that's not strength. That's fear in costume. Real strength is being able to say, I lost something good, and that was my fault. Real strength is being able to feel regret without hiding behind jokes or fake indifference. But most people have never been taught how to do that, so instead they cling to the old lie longer than they should. Reality doesn't care about their performance, though. It shows up anyway. It shows up when they're with someone new and the connection feels shallow compared to what you had. It shows up when they're stressed and realize they don't have that same safe place to land anymore. It shows up when they catch themselves thinking, they wouldn't have judged me for this, or they would have understood this without me explaining. That's when pride starts losing its grip, because no amount of pretending can match the memory of how real it felt to be understood by you. It becomes difficult for them because admitting the truth means rewriting the story they've been telling about you and about themselves. They'd have to say, I misread their value. I took something solid and treated it like it was disposable. That's a hard pill to swallow for someone who built their identity on being right, on being the one who calls the shots. So they fight it at first. They overcompensate. They try to show how happy and free they are, but the more they perform, the more tired their soul becomes, because you can't outact the truth forever. My friends, let me give you another metaphor. Think of a house built on sand. It looks fine on a sunny day. From the outside, it might even look impressive. But when the storm comes, the foundation is exposed. Their pride was that house on sand. It looked strong when everything was easy. Your absence was the storm. And when the storm rolled through, what held its ground? Not their ego, not the image they curated. No, what stood firm was what you represented: stability, depth, emotional maturity. Losing that revealed how unsteady everything around them really was. Slowly, they begin to see what they couldn't see before. Your calm wasn't a lack of passion, it was emotional discipline. Your silence wasn't indifference, it was protection of your peace. Your boundaries weren't rejection, they were self-respect. And as that truth sinks in, the regret grows deeper, because now they aren't just missing you, they're realizing they weren't ready for someone like you in the first place. This is the moment where their fear really wakes up. Not just fear of losing you, but fear of what it says about them. If they lost someone stable and good because they were careless, what does that mean about their patterns, their choices, their character? Those are big questions, and their ego hates big questions. That's why they feel pulled between reaching out and staying silent, between apologizing and pretending everything is fine. They're stuck in a quiet civil war with themselves. But remember this, my friends, that internal war is not your battlefield anymore. You are not required to step back into the fire just because they finally feel the burn. You are not responsible for fixing what their pride broke. Your role now is not to rescue them from reality, but to keep walking on your own. Their regret is not your closure. Your growth is your closure. And this is where your power shines the brightest. You aren't screaming, you aren't chasing, you aren't performing strength, you are living it. You are showing through your calm and your direction that your value didn't disappear when they failed to see it. It simply moved into a life where it will be honored properly. That's what truly humbles them in the end. Not just that they lost you, but that you rose without them. Write this in the comments right now. I rise beyond ego. Show them, show yourself. Show the world around you that you're not chained to anyone's pride. You're committed to your own peace. And stay with me, because what comes next dives even deeper into how your steady detachment turns into the very thing they can't stop thinking about. Number 4. When your stillness becomes their mirror. Nothing exposes a person faster than the calm they can't shake and the silence they can't control. My friends, there comes a point where your stillness stops being something they overlook and starts becoming something they can't escape. Up until now, they've been able to hide from themselves behind noise, distractions, and stories they tell other people. But your calm, your lack of reaction, your refusal to jump back into old patterns, that becomes a mirror. And this mirror doesn't lie, it doesn't bend, it doesn't flatter, it simply reflects who they really are when they no longer have power over you. Imagine them standing in front of a lake early in the morning. The water is flat, still, and glassy. At first, they admired the view. They think, this is peaceful. But then they look a little closer, and suddenly they see themselves in that reflection. Tired eyes, tension in their jaw, a weight in their chest they've been ignoring. That's what your stillness does to them. Your calm doesn't just sit there, it reflects back every piece of chaos they've been trying to outrun. And as much as they try to look away, that reflection keeps showing up in different forms throughout their day. They notice it when they see your name and realize their heart speeds up while yours seems unbothered. They notice it when they scroll past your profile and see you minding your business, leveling up, staying grounded, not chasing, not throwing shots, not posting cryptic drama. That steadiness unsettles them because it highlights the imbalance they've been living in. If you were supposed to be the one who needed them more, why are you the one looking composed while they're the one secretly spiraling? This is where the lies they believed about themselves start to crack. They told themselves they were the calm one, the strong one, the one in control. But your silence exposes the truth. Without someone to pull their emotions onto, they don't know what to do with themselves. Your stillness shows them how loud their inner world actually is. It shows them how reactive, impulsive, or avoidant they really are. That's a hard thing to face, especially for someone who has spent their life performing stability instead of building it. Think of it like this. For a long time, they were used to walking into a messy room and flicking the lights off so they wouldn't have to see the clutter. You were the one quietly trying to organize, to calm, to bring order. When you leave, the light eventually comes back on, and now there's no one there cleaning up. No one smoothing over tension, no one absorbing their mood swings. The mess is everywhere, and there's no one left to blame. That's when they start realizing it wasn't that life was stable, they just had you there quietly stabilizing it. Your stillness also breaks one of their favorite illusions, the one that says, if I ignore them, I have power. For a while, they believed that. They believed silence was a weapon they controlled. But now, they're the one waiting. They're the one checking. They're the one wondering. Your lack of reaction, your refusal to chase, flips the script. Suddenly, it's not your emotions on the line, it's theirs. And your calm proves something they never wanted to admit. They didn't control as much as they thought. They were just used to you overgiving. This is difficult for them because it forces them to confront the real reason they behaved the way they did. Maybe they kept you at arm's length because they were afraid of real closeness. Maybe they pushed you away because being seen by someone calm and observant felt too vulnerable. Maybe they played games because deep down they didn't believe they deserved the kind of grounded love you offered. Your stillness shines a light on all of that, and it's easier for them to call you cold or distant than to admit they're scared of being truly known. But here's the truth, my friends. Your stillness isn't coldness, it's clarity. It's you finally understanding that you don't have to keep throwing yourself into emotional storms just to prove you care. It's you realizing that you don't have to match someone's chaos to show them love. You can love deeply and still protect your peace. You can forgive and still walk away. You can care and still choose distance. That's the kind of emotional maturity that their ego wasn't ready for, but their soul feels the loss of it every day. There's a quote that fits perfectly here. Your silence is where their conscience gets loud. That's exactly what's happening. Without your voice there to calm them, justify them, or reassure them, they're left with the echo of their own choices. They replay conversations. Remember the way you warned them with kindness. Recall the moments when you tried to set boundaries respectfully. They see now that your calm was never weakness. It was a warning, and they ignored it because accepting it would have meant changing. Now, as they look at the version of you who isn't begging, isn't chasing, isn't explaining, they're forced to ask, if I was so right about everything, why do I feel so wrong now? That question gnaws at them. They don't show it, of course. On the outside, the act continues, but inside, your stillness is working on them like slow, steady pressure. It doesn't scream, it doesn't plead, it doesn't rush. It just sits there, undeniable, reminding them this is what happens when you mishandle someone who knows their worth. And my friends, This is where your power really begins to shine through, not because they're hurting, but because you're healing. You're not weaponizing your silence, you're using it to rebuild yourself. While they're busy wrestling with their reflection, you're getting clearer on who you are, what you need, and what you will no longer tolerate. You're learning that you don't need to prove your value to someone who couldn't see it the first time. Your growth becomes the quiet consequence of their choices. So when their chaos is exposed by your calm, remember, that's not your burden. You are not responsible for solving the storms that your presence used to control. You gave them the chance to rise with you. They chose not to. Now you rise on your own. Write this in the comments right now. My calm is my power. Show them, show yourself, show the world around you that your stillness is not emptiness, it is strength. And stay with me, because what's coming next goes even deeper into how your detachment slowly turns into the very thing they obsess over but can no longer reach. Number 5. When your detachment becomes the obsession they never admit. Nothing haunts the ego more than the peace it can no longer disturb. My friends, this is the turning point. The moment your detachment stops being a choice you made and becomes a weight they carry. At first, they told themselves the usual stories. They thought they were in control. They thought walking away meant they were winning. They thought ignoring you meant they held the power. But somewhere along the line, the story changed. Your distance stopped being about them and started being about you choosing yourself. And that, my friends, is the kind of shift that turns quiet regret into full-blown obsession. Imagine someone dropping a stone into a pond. The splash is loud for a second, dramatic, messy. But the ripples, those go on long after the noise stops. That's what your detachment becomes for them. The initial breakup, separation or silence was the splash. But the effects, the reminders, the echoes, those are the ripples that touch every part of their life long after you've moved on. They can tell themselves they don't care, they can pretend nothing is happening, but every ripple pulls at a corner of their mind they can no longer ignore. This is where they start feeling the shift. Your distance doesn't feel like punishment, it feels like indifference. And indifference, my friends, is kryptonite to the ego. They were prepared for anger, they were prepared for arguments, they were even prepared for heartbreak. But they were not prepared for your peace. They were not prepared for the version of you who no longer reacts. They were not prepared for the version of you who finally understood your worth. And they were definitely not prepared for the version of you who can walk away without shaking. When they see you smiling without them, growing without them, steady without them, something in them twists. Not because they suddenly discovered emotional maturity, but because they're realizing emotional access to you was something they took for granted. They believed they'll always be there, they'll always care, they'll always wait. But now, every day you don't reach out becomes proof that those assumptions were lies they told themselves. This is when the obsession begins quietly. Maybe they check your profile more often than they should. Maybe they reread old conversations at 2 a.m. Maybe they hover over your name wondering if they should message you, then pull back because their pride says no. But even their pride is cracking now because the silence they once controlled has turned into a silence that scares them. Your detachment doesn't just create distance, it creates contrast. They compare every new experience to the stability you once offered. They compare every new person to the depth you carried. They compare every conversation to the peace they felt with you. And everything falls short. Not because you were perfect, but because you were real. You were grounded. You were the kind of presence that doesn't fade from memory easily. Let me paint you another picture, folks. Imagine them picking up a key they used to use all the time. They try to unlock a door, but the lock doesn't turn anymore. That door is you. That life, that access, that emotional closeness. They don't realize it's locked until they've lost the privilege of walking through it. And when they finally understand that the lock changed, not because you're punishing them, but because you've grown, that realization shakes them to their core. Why does this part hit them the hardest? Because they didn't lose the old version of you. They lost the version that still hoped, still tried, still believed in the possibility of fixing things. That version no longer exists. In its place stands the calm, strong, grounded version of you who knows better than to reopen doors life closed for a reason. And that is exactly what triggers their internal spiral. They start questioning themselves. They start questioning their choices. They start questioning why they let something so rare slip away. They don't tell anyone this, of course. On the outside, they continue the act. They post as if life is amazing. They laugh a little louder. They try to look unbothered. But inside, your detachment is the topic of every silent conversation they have with themselves. It's the weight in their chest. It's the question they can't shake. It's the memory they can't delete. It's the version of you they didn't know how to appreciate until you walked away with your dignity intact. And here's the truth they never want to admit. You became the standard. You became the what if. You became the lesson life gave them a little too late. But my friends, this moment is not about their regret. It's about your rise. Because while they are wrestling with the consequences of their choices, you are stepping into a chapter where your peace comes first. You are rebuilding yourself, not from pain, but from clarity. You're learning that your heart doesn't belong in hands that shake. You're discovering that a stoic soul doesn't chase validation. It creates its own value. And every step you take forward becomes another reminder to them that losing you wasn't a simple loss. It was a collapse of everything they thought they understood. So let them feel the weight of your absence. Let them stare at their reflection in the quiet. Let them realize what they've lost, not out of revenge, but out of respect for yourself. And now, my friends, if this journey resonated with you, if you've felt your strength growing silently inside you, do this right now. Write in the comments, "I choose my peace." Show the world, show yourself, show those who doubted you that your calm is not weakness, it is evolution. And before you go, make sure you like, subscribe, and share this message with someone who needs it. This story doesn't end in regret. It ends in your rise. Stay with me.